Abdul Rahman. I'm a lecturer at a public university in Kenya. I deliver lectures in computing and informatics. In our last lesson, we discussed about 2D array elements, and basically you have seen the 2D elements insertion actually used the row and the column index to be actually inserted. In today's lesson, which will be going to be our last lesson and into intermediate of programming, we are going to discuss how to pass array to a function. And in that particular journey, we are going to talk about the description of how to pass those particular array into a function, and then how, or the types of how you can pass up an array in a function, and finally we are going to implement in C how we can do it. So let's start onto that particular journey and see what happened. So functions, when we're talking about how to pass an array to a function, we are saying function accepts argument as value from a variable. So for example, when we're talking about that, we can say if this is a function, void sum int a and int b. So it accepts these particular values in that particular function called sum. So if we want to execute this particular function, we have to give it some value of the data type integer, maybe 50, and 10. So this particular function, when executed, will actually take up all the logic within particular function and do it. However, also we can pass some function, we can pass actually array into a function. And there are two ways of doing that. One, we can pass them as an actual argument. And second, we can actually pass them as a formal argument. So basically, when we are talking about as an actual argument or as a formal argument, let's see an example. If you're talking about a formal argument, actually the syntax will be very simple. We have an array name and pass it the whole of the array plus the index. So basically, that one takes us onto the types of passing up an array. So basically, there are three types of passing up an array as a formal argument. So let's see the first part. So the first part, basically, you can pass it as a pointer. So the example, if you can pass it as a pointer, you'll have void, and then here we've got our function name, and then we have our int name. So with this particular one, actually you are passing it as a pointer. The second way, you can actually pass it as a sized array. So here you've got void function, and actually here you've got like int name, and this is an unsized array. So here you have our size array. So this is the sized array, whereby you define the size of an array. And the last part of it, actually, you can define it as unsized array. So here you have got void function int name without any size. So these are the three ways of actually passing up array onto. So we are going now to implement it. So that's our last part. For our implementation, we are going actually to use what you call unsized array. So let's go to dev C++ and try to use unsized array actually unsize function to actually declare that. So here we are declaring int average, that is our function, and this particular function we are passing into an array A, which is unsized. So let's see the logic behind it. So here, basically onto that, we are declaring up another array called marks, int marks, and this particular one we are putting up a size, and that size it is 5. So if a user, we are asking a user to enter up their marks, so we are using up a for loop. For, we are saying int I is equal to 0, so we want to loop through, and then we are saying I should be less than 5, and then basically we are saying we increment the I. So basically, and after that we are telling up our user printf to enter actually their marks. So tell up the user enter marks for exam. So we are giving them the number of exam, the first exam, second exam, so that is %d. So exam number 1, okay, so we'll put up exam number 1, and then basically here our argument we are putting up, we are passing on the function average. So we have got up our average, and we are not passing up the average, we are actually passing on the I plus 1. So basically we are going to repeat and repeat again to tell up our user to do that. And then we're using up a scanf. We're using up the scanf to capture our marks, and this particular marks, where are you going to capture them? We are capture them onto marks, and here we are having up our I. So basically this particular loop will capture our marks. After our marks has been captured, basically now we want to print them out. So here we are saying printf, and we are putting up a new line, and here we are telling up the average marks equals to, and we're having a %d, and basically here it is where we are calling up our function, and this particular function here now, which we call it the average, we are passing on our marks inside there. So basically that is how it is done, and that is how the logic it can be done. However, we have not defined up our function. So to define up our function, this is the function definition, which is called int average, which was passed a array which was unsized, and let's write up the logic of a function. Basically is to make up an average. So we are taking up a variable called sum, and we are initializing it to 0, and another variable called mean. We are going to pass on after we have looped all the sum and make up the mean. So here is a for loop, and this particular for loop, int I, this particular for loop basically is going to iterate throughout the array, and an array size is 5, an array size is 5. After looping, basically what it will do, it's very simple. It's going to take up all the sum, which was initialized to 0, is equal to sum plus our array I. So that is simple at the logic, how it does. And then finally, what we are going to do, we are taking up our mean to be sum divided by 5. So this is how a program will look like. So when we run, it's going to prompt us to enter our marks and then return our marks with an average. So let me run this particular program. Okay, we have not terminated our int here, so let's terminate it. Let's run again. And here we have got, yes, we have not put up a comma. So let's run the last time. I hope there will be no problem. Okay, so we have run up a program here. We say enter marks for exams. So we are entering maybe 78. The second one, we are entering maybe 67. And then we are entering 49. And then for the fourth marks, we are entering 89. And the last mark, maybe we are entering 88. So actually, it's telling us the average marks, it is actually 74. And this actually has demonstrated to show us that passing up array onto a function. However, we have come up to the end of this particular lesson, and don't forget to subscribe into our next lessons. And in our next lessons, we are going to start up the advanced programming, and we are going to start up with introduction to pointers. Thank you.